Hello, hello. We have some feedback here. Good morning, good afternoon, or good night, depending on where you are located.
Bom dia.
God dag, god dag. Welcome to this streaming, which will offer a series of presentations from activists, thinkers, and artists living on different continents who will talk about projects that they are engaged in at the moment. The topic for this 4-hour-long streaming is to explore why the commons is an important framework for understanding ecological emergency. And the project is co-produced by members of MEANDER International Platform, which we have some representatives with us here. So they will all contribute today and will present themselves more closer later in the broadcast. The program is supported by Arts Council Norway and is broadcasted from Notam in Oslo. I'm gonna we have Marina Paz. Good to see you. So I will close you again here. So. Yes. So to say a few things about MEANDER International Platform, we are a group of 4 collectives and initiatives who meet once a month to share our concerns regarding environmental change, climate change, ecological crisis, and our relation to our natural surroundings. And we do this by sharing scores, so kind of instructions that we're giving each other and are responding to. If you want to look at our this conversation of scores that we've been doing since last year, you can look at the left side of our webpage, MEANDER International, and you will find scores as a headline in the menu. So during this this sharing of scores, there has been a recurring theme, the commons. What are the commons and how do we relate to this the idea of the commons? And so that's why we have chosen this topic for the broadcast. So the 4 members of the collectives that are members of the international platform is Instituto Pro Comum and Lab Corpo e Arte. They're both situated in Brazil. And then we have Ensayos, based both in Chile, Australia, and US. And then MEANDER Society, which is situated in Oslo and Copenhagen, and Norway, also in Askim outside of Oslo. So we're going to go to the presentations very soon. Just want to tell you that you can interact with us if you go on YouTube chat. You have to log in to YouTube and make a channel. It's very easy, so it should be possible. And we will try to pick up on some of the comments and questions that will here during the day and night. Okay, so we have our first contributor here from Lab Corpo e Arte. Hello, Marina.
Hello, so nice to be here. Yes.
I don't hear you.
You don't hear me?
I don't. We say you have your microphone off. I think you say
I have my microphone. It's working.
We don't hear you. Do you have the possibility to put on your mic?
No, I don't have other mic. But everybody is hearing. Everybody's saying that they hear me in the chat.
Okay, so you hear. Okay, so it's
just we have to see if they in YouTube
make a little adjustment here. So, but very happy to looking forward to hear what you have to say, Marina. Thank you.
So thank you. Do you hear me now? Okay. I will talk about my work that I developed together with Instituto Procomum. I am a Marina Guzzo from Unifesp, Federal University of São Paulo. And we have been working together with Procomum since 2018. So we developed a work in the portuary area of Santos, which is a ecological and social vulnerable area of São Paulo, Brazil. And this last project we developed this year together with MEANDER to think about how we could dance with plants, and also how we could connect with dance in with the plants in the territory. So I will share a video while I talk. Let me see how it works. Window, Chrome tab, mistura here. So can you see it now? Let me see if it's working. I don't see if I share my screen, no. But for me, it's working that I'm sharing here. We don't see. Okay, let me try to share. It is sharing for me. Share screen. Window, just a minute. Now, well, it's not working. So maybe I can send someone the link and to share. It's easier. I'm sorry for that. Oh, now it's working. Sorry, I just wanted to show the images of the works that we've been doing. The idea of this is to put women together in connection with plants in the territory they're living. So they make two movements. One is outside to connect with these plants, and one is inside to connect with some objects and some clothes that are forgotten during the pandemic time. So these two movements from inside and outside to promote affective alliances with what it's living and what makes us feel happy and feel joy, as understanding that one of the most important tools that we have to survive this crisis is joy. So I worked with them with a minor dance. So it's this small dance that happens in our body while even when we are when we stop to breathe and to take care of the world that it's around us. So these women work together for since the planning, and then the happening of this work was 5 months of work together with Procomum. It was a presential work, and so it was also to talk about how we are disconnected from our ancestors' idea of cure and connection with nature. Living in the cities, women many times disconnect themselves with this history of care. So together, thinking how also this is a common knowledge that we produce when we start to connecting together, and then we start to connect with the territory and also with the other livings in the territory, not just only human, in this case the plants. And so this was a very powerful meeting with these women to think about first of all that in this territory there's not a lot of plants to take to be with, and also that which plants are there, so how can we reconnect with what is there, even it's a very small amount of plants, or even if it's a very small amount of possibilities to what we understand is nature. It's very powerful to reconnect with this nature that it's not separated from us. So everything that is around us, it's nature, including us. So that was the main idea of the project. And I worked together with students from the university, and also with a psychologist and a physical educator from Procomum, which is a very interdisciplinary project, also thinking that art can be made with interface with health and with territory workers that think about political changes also as a static experience. It's not only political changes as the idea of having the rights or having all the things that we need to live, but we also need beauty, and we also need connection with what is alive. So how can we connect to that? So I don't know how it's my time. I think I'm done with the time. And also I share this as a score in the platform so that other people from other collectives could do the dance with the plants, this small dance with the plants. And it was very nice to see a Norwegian dance. So that's it. I think it's very nice to also work with this score. We make a connection also with the common to what is art between us in different the territories, realities, countries, political situations. So it's been really nice to take part in this platform and to be here with you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Nina. Yeah, we will go to the next on the program. I will just go out of this, and
I don't know how was the time.
yes, well, it's good. Is Christy with us? Is Christy here?
Hi, I'm
hey, do you just want to say something before we look at your pre-recorded presentation?
Sure. So thanks for coming, everyone. You're going to see a presentation that we recorded with Ensayos. We pre-recorded it because we have a lot of international collaboration. So the timing worked out best between Australia, Norway, and the US to do a pre-recorded session where we are telling each other about the peatlands that are local to us in our regions. Ensayos, and I'm here today with Randi Nygaard in Norway and Caitlin Fransman in Brisbane, Australia. We are going to talk about the local peatlands where we live. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the background of our collaboration with Ensayos, and then tell you all about the local peatlands where I live, which is New York State in the northeast of the United States. What you see here is a map of the very southern tip of South America, including the archipelago of Tierra del Fuego, which is the southernmost part of that continent. That's on the right. That map shows some peatland sites. And on the left, you see some scientists in Caruquinca Natural Park, which is one of the scientific organizations that we partner with. And they are taking some measurements and studying the plants in peatlands. So with Ensayos, which was founded 10 years ago, what we do is bring together artists, scientists, ecologists, local, ecological, and indigenous activists to think together about issues that impact Tierra del Fuego and how those issues unfold in other places of the world. Right now, our main area of focus is peatland conservation. Peatlands in Tierra del Fuego are very important in terms of their cultural value and their ability to sequester carbon. Globally, peatlands sequester more carbon from the atmosphere than all other vegetation combined. Peatlands they're profound, they're deep, they're physically deep, they're formed over millennia by the decomposition of vegetal matter, primarily helped out by sphagnum, which is a type of moss. That's what these scientists are standing on. So primarily, I say that peatlands are characterized by the profundity of sphagnum moss, but that's not true everywhere. And I think we'll hear about other kinds of peatlands in Randi and Caitlin's presentations. So here you see a map of the northeastern United States. The polka dotted section on the lower left that says topogynous peatlands, that is where I'm learning about my local peatlands. And within that polka dotted section, there's a long line that ends a bit to the left, that's the Hudson River, and I'm to the right of that in a narrow strip. What are topogynous peatlands? The peatlands here look very different than those in Tierra del Fuego. One thing that the peatlands have in common here with the ones in Tierra del Fuego is that they are left behind after the glacial retreat. Topogynous refers to peatlands that get water from above. You can see that these topogynous peatlands have water that's flowing into these basins, and these basins were formed by the retreat of glaciers, and they have a certain type of soil underneath that support acidity in the water and also a low nutrient content. These peatlands, they form in different ways. They begin to fill these lakes or depressions, and sometimes they form on the edges, and sometimes they form mats that cover the entire place. So we do have a lot of sphagnum here. sphagnum creates this acidic condition in which other vegetation like sedges, grasses, conifers, which are trees, pine trees, which when their vegetal matter falls to the ground, it does not fully decompose. And what that forms is peat. So peatland refers to lands of peat. They're formed in different ways. The characteristic is that it's acidic and it holds water very well. That's what peat is as a land. The wetlands where I live have other types of plants as well. They have pitcher plants, a type of carnivorous plant, and it only can grow in places that have a highly acidic soil. So it's very friendly to these sphagnum peat bog landscapes that are nutrient poor. That's why they get their nutrition by eating living things like the insect that you can see stuck to the inside of this pitcher plant. I can't remember the name of this bush, but it's a type of berry that also signifies that a place might be a peatland. What's really interesting is that the types of bogs here have such a variety of what they call physiognomic types. So 5 major physiognomic vegetation types, which are tall shrub, thicket bogs, dwarf shrub bogs, forests, and moss carpet communities. So when I look at a peatland in Tierra del Fuego, I can see, okay, it's got lots of mounds of sort of reddish, greenish sphagnum with very short bushes on it, no trees growing, and it's very big, and there are little pockets of water in between the lumps. Here, I might be looking at a place that is muddy with a lot of grass. I might be looking at a place that has sphagnum and some bushes, but is much smaller. Or I might be looking at a forest. That makes it challenging to identify what is a peatland here. So here's a really interesting one, bog hollow. And the plant on the right, buttonbush, which is a member of one of these communities that can grow in peatlands. So bog hollow is a special type of peatland that forms on the side of a stream rather than being one of these depressions where the water comes in only through rain. On the left is a massive big beaver lodge. So the beavers change the water level, which at times can completely inundate the mossy portions on the edges of the valley that the bog goes through, which might impede the growth, slow the growth, or stop the growth of the sphagnum itself. But does that change the rate of development of peat? This is Swift Pond, a circumneutral bog lake, which is a spring-fed calcareous water body that commonly supports vegetation of both acidic bogs and calcareous marshes. So they're super rare habitats. Only certain portions of it have the acidity to be considered a peatland, and those are where you do get floating mats of vegetation and drifting peat rafts. This is another lakeside bog on Thompson Pond. I'm standing on some lumps of sphagnum that have some berry bushes and sedges growing out of them, and they also have a lot of ferns. And here is a tiny salamander that lives inside of the lumps of sphagnum. So Randi, I'm gonna let you share your screen now, and we'll hear from Norway.
Okay, so in Norway, we think that 10% of our landscape are bogs. So you'll find them, in the mountains, in the forests, actually inside the city of Oslo. And we have what I guess it would be reminiscent on what you talked about, Christy, bugs that are fed by rain. So they get more water from rain, and they can then turn into higher bogs, like high bogs, maybe you'd say, where the ground level of the water will be actually above the normal level, meaning that they can actually have you can actually sometimes see it, that they have a rounded top, even if they're quite big. And then you have bogs that will feed on more earth water or groundwater or water coming from streams. And they are much more nutritious. and they will not have the groundwater level rising that easily, as I understood this. But then you have a third kind of bug, which a lot of forces in Norway are now trying to save, because these are the bugs that are disappearing. And it's what you call in Norwegian slåttemyr, which means that people were cutting grass for their animals on these bugs. It's a different kind of ecosystem. You have plants there that you cannot find anywhere else in Norway. So one thinks that this practice of cutting hay or cutting the grass to make hay, maybe you'd say in English, is a really, really old tradition that is not, really few people would practice that today. In these kind of bugs, the sun would enter more easily in, and it would be more photosynthetic. And I think it's also something with being stepped on. And this is the more, like the really red listed kind of bug that we have in Norway. I think it's interesting how the most endangered bug here is one that needs and now lack human interaction. We often think of our Nordic culture as one being turned towards nature. Still, even if all human settlement originally happened near or in wetlands, we now find that in our cities, streams are often in pipes, and that in the countryside, many bugs
Sorry, there seemed to be a kind of a delay in the video, but it should be working now. I hope it works from now.
bugs have disappeared long ago, or also just a few years ago. They've been drained and turned into agricultural land, or they've been filled to build roads. Bugs have been seen as dark and dangerous and mythical places here. And they were, of course, also dangerous. You could actually drown deep bugs. But people also knew that in addition to provide hay for sheep and cows, the bugs could filter and clean water. They could conserve fish, and they were excellent water supplies in dry periods. They also sucked up rainwater and prevented flooding. And we still know and still use them to pick berries. There are some numbers of berries growing on bugs in Norway. And in winter, bugs and lakes were used as roads. They were open, and as they froze, they were excellent places to go fast from one place to another. If you walk in the forest and you come to a clearing, or a lysning, as we say in Norwegian, an open space in the forest, in between the trees, might be a small one or a big one, there's often a bug. Often it's the peat moss that created this. It might have taken it thousands of years. And these clearings are thought to have been places where people would then stop because of the light and the openness. And they would light fire, they'd rest, tell each other stories, maybe wonder about life, and then worship the gods. And to me, this is quite interesting if you think about how it opened up to the light, but how it also was something very deep and dark underneath them. The carbon in the peat is the king organic matter, consisting mostly of dead old plants, leaves, trees, branches, mosses, of course. And these decomposes extremely slowly. It can take thousands of years for them to be broken down. The bugs are antiseptic and acidic because they lack air. There's really little oxygen coming in, which is needed to decompose something that is dead so that new life can appear. In a way, I think that the bugs are something in between life and death. And sometimes it might be easier to understand what is causing death than to understand what can ignite a life. And today we might not worship gods, but we still tell each other stories. In a wetland center here in Oslo, where there is a bog within the city and also a lake. Children are taught about bugs. They're told that bugs are like big balloons containing a lot of water, and that these balloons can breathe because the bug is breathing water. Then I think I should pass the word over to Caitlin Fransman in Australia.
So I'm in Brisbane, which you can see here. So it's on the east coast of Australia. And I am looking at peatlands that are really unique to subtropical climate and to the coast. So they're sand-based fen peatlands. So I was born and grew up on Kabi Kabi country, which is kind of just north. So it's around this area. And this is called Wallam country, specifically along the coastline. And Wallam is a Kabi Kabi word, which is actually for a plant, a Banksia plant, which characteristically occurs in the Wallam heathlands. And these are plant communities where sandy, acidic and nutrient poor conditions are too tough for forests to get a foothold in. So I just wanted to share with you a bit about what I've recently learnt about the Wallam swamps and peatlands of Minjerribah. This is actually Moreton Island here, and Minjerribah is this island here, which they both form part of a bay called Moreton Bay, and it's pretty highly protected area. It's a Ramsar protected, and there's a whole lot of state and national government protections overlaying it as well. So there is recognition of the importance of the wetlands, and yet I've been speaking to scientists and there's still very little studies that have been done specifically on Minjerribah around the wetlands. Minjerribah is the traditional land and sea of the Quandamooka people. Minjerribah, it actually means place of mosquitoes, which actually makes a lot of sense when you enter the swamp and mangrove areas. So the Australian NCIS pod has been really fortunate to have been welcomed and hosted by Freya Carmichael and her mother Sonia Carmichael, Ngugi women of the Quandamooka people. So Ungair is this reed that is really important to the Quandamooka people. It's a cultural weaving fibre, and it really depends on the health of the wetlands. And so the Carmichaels as a family are really committed to the protection of the fibre and its habitat. So we can continue to be guided by their knowledge and feelings for this project. And so for our next trip on the island, we'll also be joined by an ecologist, Renee Rossini, and she's carried out field work and facilitated education programs on the island for over 10 years. So she's got a really strong knowledge of the wetlands, wetlands that are particularly unique to Australia, and she really advocates for many of the endemic plant and animal species that form part of those ecosystems. And so we're recently discussing some of the endemic species, including the endangered yellow swamp orchid, which I don't have an image of, but this is actually quite rare because of loss of habitat over time. But one of its greatest threats today is the illegal collection of the flower heads for cultivation and trade. There are also wetlands dominated by rushes and sedges, including this Ungair. and also the peat forming spreading rope rush, which is this one. And so what's interesting about this one is that rather than as with the peatlands in Tierra del Fuego, where sphagnum moss is the sort of key peat forming vegetation, it's actually this spreading rope rush that is the peat forming vegetation on the Manjeraba peatlands. Another plant, which I think is similar across all of our peatlands, is the carnivorous plants. And this one is the sundew. I recently met a palynologist, and that was something that I wanted to share with you. It was a really fascinating meeting. A palynologist is a person who studies pollen fossils. And some key points that he raised, which piqued my curiosity, were the notion of peatlands as botanical and fire archives. Controlled burning in traditional management practices is really important for the health of the ecosystem. Yeah, whilst peat fires are still an issue, they are not as much of an issue. Like, these plants that exist can regenerate, and some actually need fire to thrive. So he's talking about getting these core samples, and that allows you to look back in time to understand the past environmental changes and also the traditional land management practices. And that just helps to better understand and support the ecosystems today and in the future. And they have core samples that show evidence of continuous peat dating back 27,000 years on the island. So this is one of the swamps called 18 Mile Swamp. It is the longest sand fen in the world. So it's unique in that sense. Even doing field research on this site, we'll have to be quite specific about what areas we wish to look at.
Thank you very much, Kathleen Friesman, Christy Gust, and Randi Nygård from SciOS. I'm very sorry that we have these technical problems. We're not really sure what's causing it. There's been a delay on the video, so we lost a lot of the image content. We hope that it's gonna work out better for the next contributor. So, Lina Paz.
Hello. Hi,
Hello.
everyone. Nice to meet you. Nice to be here for the first time. I know that you love Vitor. It's a member of my team.
That's right.
Today I'm representing as well as Nina, which is mentoring of the program which I coordinate. It's a partner. So I will present a program of Procomum, Colaboradora Arts and Communities, which is one of the main programs of the Procomum. It's a journey that combines training, experience of collaborative practice for artists with the aim of strengthening cooperation, building networks, and expanding repertories. The program offers its participants a free school with workshops, mentorships, and participation in different events, access to the lab, which is a physical space for collective use, with all necessary resources for a project to take off, and articulation with other networks and communities. Participants are selected through a public call and are fully subsidized. They do not pay any money for integrate the experience. The counterpart required is a participation in a time bank that encourages the exchange of services between everyone, further strengthening the logic of collaboration rather than competition. Another important aspect to highlight is that following the mission of the Procomum, Colaboradora is a project for social inclusion and combating inequality, which is impossible to face without considering aspects of class, race, and gender. Thus, the selected participants come from the different outskirts of Baixada Santista, with an emphasis on women, Afro-descendant population, LGBT, and indigenous peoples. We will also receive creative residents with international and national guests to exchange ideas and experiences with project proponents and with the public of Lab Procomum, so that this network can also be strengthening nationally and internationally, as we are here with MEANDER, and I'm always encouraging artists from the program to know the purpose of MEANDER and enter in the scores and live another experience with the international cooperation. So now I will present a video. I will show a video that we made last year in the second edition of the program with audiovisual production of Bela Baderna, our fellows, and images made by artists from the program and in their houses, because we suddenly were captured by the pandemic. So we recreate ways of being together. So should I share my screen?
Yes, please. Let's try to do it together here.
Okay. So you can follow the subtitles. Okay, the video is in Portuguese, but we have subtitles in English.
Perfect. Are you sharing now, or?
Oh, I have to put my screen?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. You just press on share and...
Oh, I think was without audio. I will try again.
Okay, yeah.
A potência dos encontros e dos afetos produzidos ainda e sempre nos surpreendem. E nessa colaboradora não foi diferente.
Projeto político literário. Depositar a escrita feminina. Suprimir o mito do sexto sentido, da doce e inefável poesia feminina. A falsa grávida com gases.
É um mundo, né, a gente pensar em território. Existia um território bacia do mercado que estava posto desde uma chamada da convocatória desse processo, onde o próprio laboratório se finca, né, territorialmente, e os artistas estavam já predispostos a trabalhar e atuar ali naquela área.
Esse ano sou uma das residentes da colaboradora Artes e Comunidades, com muito orgulho, foi uma das coisas que me aconteceu em 2020, até a porra da pandemia chegar.
De uma hora para outra, tudo aquilo que a gente tinha sonhado, a gente claramente não iria viver mais isso, né? Por conta do isolamento social.
Esse grande evento que abalou os nossos corpos, tudo precisou ser adaptado.
Né? Quer dizer, foi um desafio tremendo reescrever os projetos, em certo sentido.
Existiu uma frustração, um luto muito grande.
Queria tanto estar aí, queria tanto pegar um barquinho e atravessar o canal do porto e cantar com vocês e dançar junto e abraçar.
Os suportes de transmissão de conhecimento, transmissão de ideias, eles mudaram, então tudo seria mediado pela tela.
E não só agora olhando as pessoas através da tela, como na verdade imaginando pessoas, falando com pessoas imaginárias.
Boa noite.
Oi, Nath.
Vocês estão me ouvindo?
Tô com muitas saudades de vocês todos. Estou sem energia, estou aqui só ouvindo vocês.
Eu, pelo menos, estou com essa sensação de que eu já me acostumei a estar isolada. E me acostumei, porém estou muito cansada.
Ai, gente, só inventando, né?
Como manter uma estabilidade emocional.
Fico bloqueado, fico parada, não tenho foco, não tenho um estímulo de ir e vir, ficar confinada dentro de casa.
Mas acho que também tudo bem, né? Não é todo dia que a gente tá bem, tá foda.
Eu acho que a gente precisa conseguir construir mesmo esses espaços de cuidado, de troca, né? E eu sinto muito que esse espaço que a gente está construindo aqui é um espaço desse.
O cuidado, ele apareceu como recurso, né? Como recurso de troca.
Às vezes as nossas ideias são todas cheias de coisas e de emoções misturadas com tudo que a gente está vivendo, com esse contexto foda, e a gente não consegue tensionar a flecha para ela sair, né? Que a gente tá aqui para isso, né? Para ouvir, para conversar, para trocar ideia, para fazer pergunta.
Eu acho que é uma coisa que está sendo construída de uma maneira que ela é muito difícil, porque ela é lenta, ela é à distância.
O tempo do comum não é o meu tempo. Exige que eu saia de mim para me encontrar na espera, na aproximação, em suspensão.
E acho que esse mergulho nesse tempo diferente acabou aparecendo em quase todos os projetos.
O sentido da colaboração é a possibilidade da realização de descobertas. Quem sabe a cura, alguns sonhos, numa deriva.
E que é uma história que acho que ainda está se estruturando, se compondo. Ela ainda está sendo contada, não é uma história com fim.
Sim, tudo isso vai desmanchar assim que o vento mais forte chegar para lembrar a hora de voltar pro mar, pro céu de cor de noite aberta, pra água, pro chão forrado de flor, de braços abertos pro meio do amor, longe da saudade, brincando de sumir, pro meio do vento que leva daqui. Sim, tudo isso vai desmanchar assim que o vento mais forte chegar para lembrar a hora voltaremos. E voltaremos bem.
Obrigada.
Maravilhosa. Obrigado,
Tchau,
gente. Boa
gente.
noite.
Beijo.
Amo vocês.
Well, with this video, I wanted to show that in certain way is an ecological perspective being in a collective, taking care of each other, discovering different resources to love and transform things, paying attention in our context and environment to resist and change severe ways of exploration. I invite you to follow us on Instagram, Procomum, to see other projects that dialogue with the purpose of the MEANDER International. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Marina. It was nice to finally meet you.
Oh, nice. The other Marina.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna have a break. I'm gonna let you out here. And we have a little video that you can enjoy, or you can go to the bathroom, or you can have yourself a coffee or a tea. A moment. Wait. Har dere problem med dette, eller?
Det kom ikke ut.
Virker ikke den. Oi. Okay, the break is over, and I have with me Sessa Jørgensen in the studio next to me. And the images we see in here is from Sessa Jørgensen and Geir Tore Holm's farm. It's Maiste in the picture, their dog, and with Vera Dvale music. Welcome, Sessa. I have to turn off my microphone so that you can speak.
Okay. Hello, I'm Sessa, and I will start this presentation about Sørfinset skole with introducing the project, and then we will show a little excerpt from the Sørfinset TV, and after that TV, Sørfinset TV, and after that Geir, my partner, Geir Tore Holm, he will also speak a little bit. So, Sørfinset skole, the Nordland, that's the full title, is a socially engaged art project that examines how contemporary art can function in a prolonged dialogue with the local community. It was established in 2003 on an invitation from the county of Nordland. 4 artists were invited to develop a temporary art project in the village of Sørfinset. The artists were Kamin Lerchai-Praset and Rirkri Tiravanya from Thailand, and Geir Tore Holm and myself, Sessa Jørgensen from Norway. Sørfinset skole, the Nordland, focuses on dialogue, social engagement, and experimental form of value and knowledge production. Different understandings of ecology and different involvement in nature at different levels has been investigated through seasonal activities, building activities, concerts, lectures, workshops, exhibitions, excursions, hikes, parties, and more. As performance researcher Bol Christensen Scheel writes, ecology becomes a way you can balance a hyper-complex totality with the help of respect and mutuality. An ecology does not mean conflict-free harmony or painless totality. To act and live together includes always a conflict of interests and negotiations. So during the last 19 years, many people, artists and others, has attained activities for a major part that has been localized to Sørfinset village, which is a fjord village approximately with 70 inhabitants in Gildeskål municipality in northern Norway, situated in a rural coastal landscape above the polar circle. The project Sørfinset skole, the Nordland, has from its beginning meant to last forever. So, whatever forever means. For us, it has been important to learn and listen to local people, since none of us had a connection to the village from before. We came with an open mindset to initiate activities in collaboration with people in the village. One of the first things we did was to organize a common meeting in order to discuss and brainstorm what to do, to find out what was on people's wish list. A lot was mentioned, but the most important was a rather simple wish, and that was to make activities and to establish a feeling of something interesting going on in the village. The reason why it was important for people to have the feeling of something going on is because the number of inhabitants has more than halved the last 50 years, mostly due to lack of jobs. So our answer to this was to organize different activities that everybody could engage in. So we use our artistic sense to try to unify different knowledges and to make possible surprising hybrids. Our activities established common arenas, meeting places to exchange in different ways, with, for example, working together, eating together, hiking together, partying together. Among other things, we made and built a small Thai-style house and also a Sami Guatti, a traditional Sami turf house. During the building processes, we experienced the dugnadsånd, as we say in Norwegian, the spirit of doing something for the good of the community without expecting something in return. This is a way of helping each other out, but also, in this case, a tradition deeply connected to the place, to this certain place and its history. Since living has been harsh, you never knew when help was needed. So we experienced that this willingness to help each other out effortlessly was still living among the people, and this made our activities welcome and open to participation. So we started on a path of making new traditions. One of them is the annual Guatti Day and the summer party, open to all and gratis, for free. All our activities are actually for free. Mostly the activities are for a local audience, but the latest years we also started to make online TV broadcast called Sørfinnset TV to show the world and also the municipality that we work in what we are up to. So the artists that have teamed up for the summer make interviews, music, performances, and TV kitchen based, everything based in the activities going on. Everything produced and published at Sørfinnset with the topics and people available. And I must also include that we use a lot of humor in our broadcasts. At least we have a lot of fun making them. So now we will show a small compilation of excerpts from some TV production to show how it looks in Sørfinnset, the village, but also represent some important voices. So after the screening, then Geir will talk.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna try to upload the video. Let's see if we have more luck this time.
Landbruk har jo endret seg veldig mye de siste 50 årene. Jeg tenker bare på her på
So we're still having the same problem. So now Sasa is working on trying to do a shared screen, which I think works better than to play it from my machine, which was recommended, but doesn't work, obviously. So there will be a little delay. I have to help Sasa here. So yes, seems like we still don't have sound. Should we? Do you want to? Do you want to? Do you want to show it without the sound?
Yeah, we can. It is texted, so it's not that.
Yeah. Okay, we go for that.
Okay, then
we go for that. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, we're very sorry about this inconvenience, and we promise to post the video contributions online after the broadcast. Hope that we can restore the internet. We will now go to Geir, who's going to continue the presentation.
So, hello everybody, this is Geir Tore Holm speaking. I will just do a little short talk, just to mention and to present for you a little part of our project, or main part of our project in many ways. It's about the Sami perspectives in Surfingstad the Nordland. Surfingstad the Nordland is situated in the north of the Arctic Circle. That is an important aspect of our activity in the north. So the Sami people, those of you that don't know the Sami people is the indigenous people of the Scandinavia and also the Kola Peninsula in Russia. So it's important to state the way of thinking from the Sami perspectives, and the Sami perspectives is that we perform the idea of being in one with our land, and that is somehow quite challenging when our concepts meet other concepts like farming, like ordinary farming and mining and fish farming, for instance. And we have seen a lot of conflicts on that going on, and even brought up in the courts. Like I just mentioned a couple of Supreme Court cases, like the Chapel Svartskogen case, which is took place in my home valley, where my people in the valley claim the rights to have ownership over a part of the area. And also in the Selbu case, where the Sami reindeer herding people were in court with the local farmers. Then the settlers claimed to have the right to the land and denying the Sami rights, but the court case showed that there were historical rights of the Sami people. And lately as well in the Fosen case, which is a very remarkable case where the highest court found that the Sami people in the area, in the Fosen area, had a right, and that the rights as indigenous people, and that the wind power industry was against the livelihood and the culture of the Sami people, and was stopped. This was like a political decision to make this wind turbines in that area, but the highest court, or the Supreme Court, said that that was against the rights of the Sami people. So this is very big things going on now recently, and of course this this is a case that this will be brought on, and to figure out how to in the future live in coexistence, how reconciliation could take place, which is kind of a hard task when it comes to the rights of resources and land. In the Surfingstad project, I, as a Sami person, have been bringing in, of course, my background as Sami and knowledge and ways of doing things from my home village, Almaivägi, Mandal. And in that little project, which is more like the storytelling of a place and an area, there we brought in the Sami aspects, when it came to like building traditions, ability to use what is on the place, like and play also with the possibilities to improvise with what we got. And also this idea of collectivity has been a main issue, both when it comes to the gathering, as Susa has been telling about, has been a core thing, to find gathering places, have events and gathering occasions, but as well as the idea of sharing knowledge. So that it will go on forever. So that's the way also an idea and artist project can go on forever. It can go on forever through stories, memories, and even art histories. So thank you.
Thank you, Geir Tore and Susa. So we are a little bit late, and we hope to have with us the next guests. Raisa Capasso and Gabrielle Keeling are here.
Yes, here we are. Hi, everyone.
Hi. Thanks for joining us. We should have your...
I will share my screen.
Here. Yes. Do you... can you just make a little sound test?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Hola.
Great.
Perfect.
Yes. So please
Hi,
go ahead. Thanks for joining.
Thanks. First, we want to like to ask permission for those who guide and care about us, our ancestors, encantados, traditional master of popular culture, who weave our ways and who allow us to be here today and to share with us.
And thanks to invitation to Nina Buzo and Procomum for that meeting. We are Raisa and Gabriel, and today we are going to share a little of our sentir pensar, feel, think, our practices in movement. Immersed in so many crossing reflection by the current times, we choose to trace a brief path about that has moved us and brought us means, and at the same time loved some seeds about the book we just published, Reflections from Our Daily Practices. Misery, pandemic, and death. Times are still difficult for the Jews who fight and resist. Brazil, the country among which the most people die in conflicts in the rural areas, in the roads, the most murders of human rights activists, environments, black house, social local leaders, indigenous humans, defense of life.
To understand a little bit of our work, Itinerancia's work in the context in Latin America, Abya Yala, on November 18, the Acroagamela indigenous who lives in north of Brazil, who existing is denied by the Brazilian government, had 20 people are arrested arbitrarily. Among them, the Kuntum Acroagamela, one of the greatest leaders in Brazil, told Teia dos Povos articulation. After a strong local social pressure, they are released and they are shaved, all your cell phones and camera broken and sized. Not only we are attacked by entirely neoliberal contexts, but by a directly attack from the genocide state. Sometime before, we are there in his territory, developing a body, territory, memory, cartography, and work together. When the capital advances on your bodies, our bodies, territory, and our memories of our people, colonizing racist and sexist narrative try to exterminate our knowledge. In counterpoint is the collective, ancestral, community intelligence, an immense capacity to create and reinvention of a strong pulse for life, which has started for projects the dispute to livable life, bem viver in the commons.
The Itinerances Collective has been working for 80 years to strengthen autonomous experience in traditional communities and spaces of resistance in Brazil and in other countries of Abiayala, in hundreds of territories, communities in countries such as Brazil, Colombia, Argentina, Mexico, and Cuba, with indigenous people, quilombos, occupations, rural settlements, fishing villages, and among other communities where collective life exists and resists.
We work collectively, self-management, and nomad, and we only find ways through the multiple knowledge from difference in the multiple production of free knowledge, from traditional knowledge, from practice and science. We work with social, digital, and ancestral technologies.
It is the encounter of worlds, visible and invisible, that will open possibilities of collective actions in favor of life in all these complexities, being the life livable.
The pillar of our method are listening, bonding, and coexisting. The central elements of our projects emerge from the daily routine of the territorial projects of care in their invisible networks. That's who maintains the life, like long and firm underground roots that intertwine with many other roots that support a forest. Focus on a territorial resistance strategy of how territory is strong, sustainable, and by the perspective on life that is beyond we reach. They drive a project for a society from a deep structural change with a high impact on life as a role in all its form of manifestation with multiple cosmovisions.
We will also humbly share some of our questions, which we cultivate every day because our round is in our ability to go polishing our question daily, and it's very gratification to do with you. What keeps us alive in the south of the world? Who are responsible for keeping us alive? How and what are our strategies, our practices? What practices make political struggle possible? Who is the protagonist of these practices and how do they do it? How are the territories producing strategies of resistance and livable life, of production, of reproduction? We are these care practices, even creators of economy and technologies. How to desprivatizing the debate about precisely that move us? How provoke the coexistence with this debate? The harvest of it and the shapes of broth about it? What kind of political keep us alive? Recently, published a book with the College Redes de Cuidado, Revoluções Invisíveis para uma Vida Vivível, or Care Economy and Networks Care, Invisible Revolution to a Livable Life partnership with Rosa Luxemburgo Foundation. When we are looking at resistance strategy, we find network care as something alive and producing territorial self-defense.
We take some great responsibility for maintaining the life in the face of precariousness. But not only that, it is also through her others horizons are projected. Network care are about this. They are an invisible and subterranean tissue that sustain existence, qualified walking and historically maintain a livable life. They describe something that always happens collectively. They have dedication, bounds, solidarity, follow-up, ancestry, listening, speaking. They are woven between the lines in awaken or history, or body, or struggle. They tell about who you are and where we come from and the strength we have. They are implicit in the communitarian way of recreation, the economy, understanding the nature, moving communication, politics, and technology, among others.
Our books is about seeds ideas. It does not intention to exhaust the debate.
To bring some insight into our work, we want to quickly show the care cartography carried out last years in Brazil with 16 territories, and on we producing of narrative about resistance strategy and how they are related to care networks in the context of COVID-19 pandemic. With the Brazilian state had the intention to wipe out the population. It was the territorial organization from the inside to inside that sustained all grievance of the situation.
So we dedicate ourselves of systematizing the memory of what really keeps us here.
It is impossible to talk about ecological emergence and sustainable art and life projects from a perspective that do not contemplate the life of those who produce and defend life, who keep all the forests and biomes in the world standing, and who for thousands of years have sustained the sky. We need to look from a realist and non-colonizing development perspective for our time to understand that is disproportionate profits of capital in the name of progress is actually built above the blow and finitude resource of our planet, and we coexist here. It's necessary to think about climate justice and understand the environmental racism we live. But we too need to radicalize the ability to smile and dream, to engage in political forms or affection, and to tell our stories, to remit the being nature that we are, to nurture our autonomies, to inhabit others' temporalities now. The word you want is the word that keeps us all alive. And to finish, we leave here a reflection of Jaider Esbel, which had just left this year Earth plane. For us is eternal. Art motivates and makes more people claim their place in the country's historical trajectory. Archaeology is very powerful technology. The language, the players, the song, the way to communicate with other words, or way of moving through the universe seems always as complex cultures. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rais and Gabriel. Beautiful, touching. Yes. So I will let you leave the room here. Then I will, together with Kristin Astrup, present. Let's see. We're
Hello.
Going on underwater. We are going to present an ongoing work we are doing on a film project. I can first introduce myself. My name is Kjersti Wetterstad. I'm a visual artist. I'm also the chair of MEANDER Society, and I'm one of the founding members of the MEANDER Society and the international platform. And I'm working with performance and video, and since 2014 I've also been working with film, now together with Kristin.
Yes, that's me. My name is Kristin Astrup. I am also part of MEANDER Society in Norway, although living in Copenhagen, Denmark. And yes, we are working on this film project together, me and Kjersti, which we are going to talk about now.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen here. Hopefully it will work. Yes, so we are working on a film that we started out researching for in 2018, and the film takes its starting point in sorry. The film takes its starting point in a planned open pit mine that the mining company Nordic Mining has been granted rights to install, and in the Engebø mountain on the west coast of Norway, and to dump the waste from the mine in the Førdefjord, which is a national salmon fjord, one of our last pristine fjords. And the mining company is really eager to start the process, but there are several, there's a trial, and there are also some rights that they haven't been granted yet that stops them from starting the process. So I guess to say something very short about the film in this context is that it's a story about how the Norwegian government, hand in hand with the big business, desire to transform and regenerate a common or a variety of commons into monetary value or for short-time profit for the common good. Where the people that are benefiting the most from the transformation of this place seem to be the production leaders of the mining company, the shareholders, and so on. And while those who suffer from the loss gets little or nothing in return, and where those who do not have the legal status as persons are nearly considered at all. So you see on the picture here, it's a overview of this fjord from it's a drone picture from above the Engebø mountain where the mining will take place. So here you see the mountain and the fjord where this deposit will be. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the case before Kristin continues. It was in April 2015 that the Norwegian government granted the mining company Nordic Mining permit to open an open pit mine in this mountain and to dump enormous amounts of waste in the fjord. As I mentioned, the fjord is considered a national salmon fjord with 4 salmon-carrying rivers. It is home and feeding ground and breeding ground for a rich variety of different species of marine life. Among them, several red-listed and protected. Wild salmon has recently and very sadly been added to this list in Norway. A big variety of birds live here, and sea mammals like seal, porpoise, and orca come here to feed. And so it's a very much alive, living environment. So the plan, this is an illustration made by Nordic Mining of the project. So the plan is to dump, I think it's around 97% of the masses of this open pit mine in the sea, and also there's a landfill, and this will be around 250 million tons of mineral waste. So the plan is to crush the stones into like this very fine powder to extract the mineral rutile and granite, which is equivalent to pouring 11 tons per minute for the next 40 years of waste into the fjord. So, and here they have also they have this presentation here of how they imagine that it will happen, that there's some kind of dead area at the bottom of the fjord, which is not really representing the reality, but that there is both fish farms and wild living fish that is enjoying their lives on top of the ocean. But there are currents in the fjord, and there are worries from our Marine Research Institute, among others, that this dust will not stay at the bottom, but that it will float around and contaminate an enormous area. They are worried that it will turn into a big catastrophe. So here you see it from above, the mine and this refinery plant by the sea, and also a big landfill, enormous, at the back of the mine. It's a valley that's going to be full of stones. So in this place, people are living their lives. The nearby hamlet of Vevring is the kind of the there are only 300 people living there, and but they are protesting. They've been protesting since 2006 when Nordic Mining was funded, and they live partly their lives on the sea, on the fjord and by the fjord, fishing and swimming and so on. And then we have also, of course, the underwater environment. So we are working with one of Norway's most renowned underwater photographers, Erling Svendsen, who has given us a lot of underwater footage. We are just going to show you a couple of pictures here of sea anemones from the Førdefjord. But when the film is released, you will see that there's a lot of life, in this area. We have an example of fjord where there has been similar contamination. So the Jøstingfjord, which is like a desert now, 40 years after they stopped using it as a dump, is full of this dust, as you can see. I have a little video here that shows the effects of this dust. There is no oxygen at the bottom, so there's very little life that can survive in this environment. It's just full of dust. So in 2016, because of this planned catastrophe, local environmentalists, together with environmental organizations, enrolled in the longest manifestation of civil obedience in Norway's history since the early 80s.
2015. 15.
Yeah. 1980s, yeah. And then, here you see actionists from environmental organizations that have chained themselves to the machines at the top of the Engebø mountain in the middle of the winter. It's in February and very cold. So there's been a lot of resistance against the project. Causes international attention. It's also is a controversial in a global context, since the sea dumping is against international conventions. And Norway, together with Papua New Guinea, is the only country still allowing this kind of extremely outdated type of activities. So I don't know if I should continue.
Yeah. Yes, as Kjersti just said, this is a quite extreme practice to dump waste directly out into the fjord, and as she said, only Norway and Papua New Guinea has rejected to sign the convention, an international convention or agreement that this practice should not be done anymore. So that's something to think about. And in our film, we raised the question of how this can even happen now in our time in Norway, and in the world, where we are in the middle of a sixth mass extinction, just as the UN has warned that alongside climate change, loss of biodiversity is our most serious environmental challenge, and that loss of habitat is one of the main problems in this regard. So when we started doing the research for this film, we looked into looking into this specific case. One of the first things we did was to read through the legal documents presented by the officials. And what we found there was that they too, the officials were also very concerned about the possible consequences of this mining project, and especially, of course, the dumping. Actually, a 120 pages long report was written about all the reasons for not allowing the mine and the dumping. And but in the end, only a few lines anyway sealed the project plans by claiming that the benefits were bigger than the disadvantages, and allowing the dumping, despite the possible harm it might cause, is better for society as a whole. And then we were left with just as many questions, because what does that mean? What is the society as a whole? What is better for the society as a whole? And what are the values gained, and what are they weighted against? And whose interest is actually considered when we talk about the society as a whole? Obviously, it's not the local inhabitants, and it's not the now red-listed salmon or the blue ling. And why isn't the government requiring that the mining industry adapt and find sustainable solutions? Because recently a new competing mining company has shown that there are alternative solutions available. So why is this not demand from the government? The sea and the wilderness is largely, you can say that it's largely considered a common in Norway. It's constituted in the legislation, in several legislations, and but the laws are mainly centered around the common human right to use and utilize nature and natural resources, with the focus on the rights of any other living beings. If you look at the definition of the commons, commons says that the commons are the cultural and natural resources accessible to all members of a society, including air, water, and habitable earth. These resources are held in common, not owned privately. Commons can also be defined as a social practice of governing a resource, and not by state or market, but by a community of users that self-governs the resource through institutions that it creates. In Vevring, where this mine is planned to be situated, the fjord can probably be said to be the most important common. It's the basis of most life and culture in and around it, as a living environment, as food provider, and by being so also creating a collective identity and place of belonging for those who live there. But in Vevring, they also have have something else that is important for the local identity, and that's the Vevring exhibition, which you see a picture from here. It's a local art exhibition where artists from Norway and abroad are invited to share their works and thoughts. And as mentioned, you have to remember that this is a place where 300 people live, so it's very, very small. And the exhibition, it's all the inhabitants are actually taking part in this exhibition. So we claim that the exhibition can be said to have become a kind of human-created common after having existed for more than 40 years and involving almost all people living in the hamlet. And it consists of myriads of small and big parts and contributions, some repetitive and indispensable, and some new and developing. Seen from our perspective, we see this exhibition as a cultural common, a self-governed cultural resource, and a collective identity defining and strengthening the local society. But this common or value, which is now threatened by the mining project, is not considered a part of the accounting when talking about the benefits for society as a whole. And maybe that is because it's a kind of value that requires that you actually know the place intimately. In the film, we explore this case as presented in the logic and language of bureaucracy and business, which is generally understood as objective, rational, and scientifically funded, and opposed to other perspectives and cultures existing within the same society. but which are based on a different hierarchy of values. And here it's represented by the local inhabitants with their personal experiences and knowledge of their surroundings, and also in the larger transnational network of activists and artists who are engaged in this case. Yes, this is a work in progress, and the film is estimated to be released in spring 2023.
Okay, so we're a little bit late. I'll stop this sharing first of all. And thank you, Kristin.
Thank you.
So we have our next guest who will take us on a little journey. She is already here. I can see you. So I'm inviting you into the room here now.
Hey. Yeah. Hi, thank you, Kirsty.
Thank you so much for being with us, Olive.
Yeah, thank you all for having me. Shall I start?
Yeah. You're welcome to start.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'll just say a little bit about me, just to sort of contextualize what we're going to do. And that is, I'm a performance maker and a dance artist and a somatic movement educator, and often teach material focused around ecosomatics. So really bringing people into the intimacy of their own bodies, the material of their own bodies, as a way to come into relationship with place, as a way of coming into relationship to many other beings on the planet. And so I'm, just to contextualize, I'm in Oslo, and I'm originally from Aotearoa, from New Zealand. I run a performance project with my partner called the Body Cartography Project. So I think I can just say all of those things. And then what I would like to invite you to do, we're going to work together for about, 20 minutes or half an hour, Kirsty? What do you think? Because you're running a little bit late. What would you like me to do?
Yeah, maybe it would be good to kind of catch up with the schedule.
Yeah,
so
okay.
Maybe we do a bit
22
more
minutes.
22 minutes, then we're going to be on time with everything.
Okay.
So that's a good idea.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, great. So I'm going to invite you, if you want to do this with as much full body or as micro movement as you want. You can be sitting in a chair. If you want to lie down on the floor in your space, you can lie down on the floor. You don't have to watch. You can really just listen. So there's sort of nothing to see from my camera specifically. So I really invite you to kind of to listen and to follow along. And maybe at some point I'll show some images, but when I do that, I'll let you know. But I just want to invite you, first of all, to come into a sense of your own skin. So just beginning by kind of touching and tracing the outer surface of your skin all over your body with your hands. So you can take your hands and just begin to kind of say hello to this sensory organ that is constantly meeting the world. If you want to, also don't want other people to see you, you're welcome to make your screen also, to turn your camera off. And can people hear me okay? Yeah? Okay, great. So just touching all of these surfaces of yourself. And maybe you've got clothes on, maybe you're on the floor, maybe you're in a chair. You can also use the chair, the floor, as a way to wake up all of this surface, all of this skin. And as you activate this skin, you're probably also moving your muscles, moving your bones, moving your organs. So as you move to allow all of the surfaces of your body to come into contact with your hands, with the floor, with your chair. Maybe you notice that your breathing is getting activated. Because as we move, right, our body needs oxygen. And the more we move, the more we breathe. Hey, so I welcome you to yawn and make noise and actively take in some beautiful full breaths. Moving the air, moving this fluid air, moving this aliveness that is outside of you in through your nose and mouth, into your trachea, in to your bronchi, into your lungs, into your blood. Feeling your body breathing, your lungs are breathing, but all of your cells are also breathing. So the more I move, the more oxygen I need. The more carbon dioxide I release. Yawning and stretching. All of your 73 trillion, cells in your body are breathing. And as we breathe, right, we're taking in this place, we're taking in this space, we're taking in this air that is full of oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, all of this air that is full of dust, this air that is full of maybe spores and spiders, this air that may be full of smoke or other pollutants, this air that is made up of many, many things. This air that lives within the skin of the earth. So surrounding the earth, this 3 to 7 mile space, fluid space, where all of this life, all of this water is mobilizing, is living, is breathing. This narrow skin that we share with all of these other life forms. This air that is not a nothing, but really a something, right? It is a relational field between everything that we see and smell. And hear and move through. So even as I'm seeing you on my screen, maybe I'm not seeing you, but even as I'm seeing your screens, I am also perceiving the thickness of the air between my body and this camera, screen, camera, computer screen. So really feeling how the moving is getting the blood moving through the body. This blood is carrying our oxygen and our carbon dioxide, carrying our oxygen from our lungs and our heart to all of our cells, and coming back carrying carbon dioxide from all of these cells everywhere, back through the veins, back to the heart, back to the lungs, and then breathing it out. Moving to breathe, breathing to move. And where is this blood that is spiraling through our arteries and veins, carrying all of this stuff, moving around our hormones, moving around all of the nutrients we bring in from our food, this blood that is carrying the things we need and also the things we don't need. So maybe heavy metals, maybe other toxins. The white blood cells are helping us to clean that stuff up and get it out of our body. Oh, but all of this stuff is moving through. And actually, 85% of our body cells are red blood cells. So all of this blood, like a river spiraling and moving through into finer and finer and finer and finer tubes, finer and finer and finer capillary beds as it reaches our peripheries. So you may feel these sort of the pulsation of the heart or the big kind of tubes of the arteries and the blood moving through these thumb-thick tubes, right? But you may also be feeling the peripheries that are more like a wetland, bog, and estuary, where stuff is really moving across, where blood, or where gases, I should say, are moving across membranes. Oh. Oxygen, carbon dioxide, and other things are able to pass through those very fine membranes at the level of our peripheries and our capillary beds. It's really just noticing, is there anywhere else in your body that feels stiff or unmoving right now? Can you send more oxygen there? Can you send more blood there? Yeah. Either by getting a bit of micro movement happening in there, maybe you're placing your hand on that place and breathing in to that place. And where's this blood also going? Where's this blood also coming from? It's being born in our bones. So when you feel ready, I'm going to invite you to begin just coming in and touching bones. You could do it on your leg, your arm, your skull, your pelvis, wherever you want. What is it to, with your hands, to touch into bone? Feeling the kind of density of this mineral-rich storehouse in your body. You can trace the length of a whole bone, feeling how it thickens at each end and gets narrower in the middle. You could trace from one bone to another bone. How is it that we're touching bone? We're going through skin, through muscle. Oh, touching into bone, feeling the incredible architecture of these structures of our living skeleton. So inside of these bones actually have, multiple layers. So as you're touching, you might notice that you can feel more the kind of slippery outer surface of your bones. Maybe you're able to feel into the density, into the compact bone. That density that really helps this bone keep its kind of form. These bones are constantly building and unbuilding themselves. So inside of the compact bone, we have something called spongy bone. And it's like a fantastic kind of matrix. I'm going to see if I can share. Maybe I won't. I'll save that for a second. I'm just going to keep you with the movement. But so inside of this compact bone, there is spongy bone, especially at the ends of your long bones, also in your ribs, also in your skull, also in your pelvis. And this spongy bone is like a matrix that is constantly building and unbuilding. So as we eat particular foods, right, we are constantly kind of traveling in or bringing in through our blood the things that our bones need to stay healthy. And as they do that, we have osteocytes, which are active bone cells that are constantly building up the density of our bones. And then as our body needs certain minerals in certain places, then we also have osteoblasts, which are helping us to break down this bony structure and maybe thin out the bone in particular places when our body needs certain minerals. So as we play, can we also go to the inside of your bone? And maybe it's something you can feel in your hands. Maybe it's something you just call in with your imagination. But on the inside of this bony structure is this blood, is our bone marrow, right? This place where we're generating this blood. So the blood is coming out of these bones. It's being born. These red blood cells are being born in these bones. And so to find our blood in our bones, to feel the aliveness of these mineral structures in our own body, to feel how these bones are both nurturing our blood and being nurtured by this blood. These bones that have the capacity for us or offer us the possibility of coming up out of gravity, right? Without them, we would just be a pile of organs on the floor. So feeling how these bones and their joint spaces, all of the specific shapes that this living skeleton allows us to play with as we come into and out of our chair or into and out of the floor. All of the ways that these bones can be moved or can move around each other. And if you've been moving only with your eyes closed, you might want to, with your eyes open, you might want to close your eyes for a little bit. Even if you're doing tiny micro movement, what is it to come to the inside of these bones, to feel this kind of lava? That is building inside of this living skeleton. And I want to add just one last piece in to play with. That this blood that is being born in the bones is traveling to the heart and the lungs, is feeding all of the tissue. It's also tethering in to all of our organs, right? So as we eat our food, all of the things that we eat, right, that we are able to absorb and take in through the lining of our gut, moves into our blood, moves into our liver, moves potentially into our whole bloodstream. So this sense of blood as a kind of connector, root system, stream, river, connecting bones to organs. This blood that is spiraling, these bones that are spiraling, these organs that can slide and glide around each other. What is it to come to these fluid, porous organs inside these containers of bone, moving from the inside. Even if we're just breathing, we're moving our organs with this blood, all of this breathing, all of this living, all of this dying, all of this vitality in our bodies. And then as you're ready, allowing your body to come to stillness, Whether you're standing or sitting or lying down, allowing your body to come to stillness, feeling all of the movement that's still unfolding inside. Thank you, everybody.
No, it's
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Kan du sette på den andre, for den er... Ok. Oi, det er litt... moment here. Thank you, Olive. Did you?
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks a lot for the treat. And thanks for reminding us of our material existence. Yeah. Okay, now you're... Yeah. Okay, it was a bit of a delay here. So we will go directly to the next on the program, and that would be Kristi and Ensayos guests. I'm gonna just... make some space here. Yes, so
Hi, thank you. So earlier we looked at some presentations from members of Ensayos about sensing our local peatlands, looking for local bogs. With Ensayos, pedagogy or teaching is part of our practice. And this summer with the University of Hartford's Nomad MFA program, we taught a course called Bog is Good, in which we learned about and spent time in a former peatland. So well over 90% of the peatlands in the United States have been destroyed. And the one that we spent time in is called Crystal Peak Conservation Area. It's in Tolland, Connecticut, and it is a public land. It's a commons in a sense. And we were looking for places where the ghost of a bog might show itself. The students used the ArcGIS story map technology to make a presentation that helps combine storytelling and science. about this place, and I'm going to share a video in which they present their story map. And the video is a bit longer than our allotted amount of time, so I'll only show the first 15 minutes, but the rest of it can be viewed on Ensayos website. Share screen. This one. Share this one.
Weren't known by this name, crystal peat, until we'd already been building an ecosystem for billions of years, starting with the rocks. And for more than 10,000 years, since the last glaciers retreated from this continent. Shall we explain ourselves to you? We are a wetland, in that we are wet land. We are inundated with water. We are your bog, in that we have qualities that are bog-like. Our wetness is squishy. Our wetness is homemaking for our kinds. Our self-home is made by sphagnum moss. When we were named Crystal Peat by people who drove in with machinery and an objective, we became part of a company, kind of like an employee, whose entire job is to be used up until nothing is left. The result of our post-glacial 1,000-year processes of holding and delaying breakdown of organic matter mattered. To people in need of heat, in the burning of dry peat, human beings could warm themselves. By selling peat, the peat company could make money to make peat profitable. Water was drained from us, and we were harvested and moved away from our home watershed. Our body left us to become part of another system of burning, of heating, of dryness in buildings, a particular kind of comfort. The. 'Cause 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 our story, human effort flashes over our geological timescale. We were drained, removed. We were debogged, dried. Over us grew birch trees, a not fog, a leftover, a ruin. But over all this time, the water has been returning, soaking the earth through, wetting our roots again. Stagnant. It's funny. Not too long ago, some human beings came to see us. They were looking for a bog. They had in their minds images of sphagnum. They brought lenses and microphones. They brought their bodies too. They took photos and tried to see us. They listened and made their own strange song. Amid us, they wondered if we were what we were supposed to be, a peat bog. We answered their questions with our body language. We answered with our entirety. We felt them come and we felt them leave. We heard them wonder, what is a bog and what is a ruin? And what will be next in this place?
Thank you, Teal. The first question comes from Mary. Mary says, I've often read that I should use peat to grow certain types of plants. What are the best substitutes? Any ideas how I can convince gardeners and farmers to avoid buying peat at their local hardware stores? I'd like to share information about some preferably free, reused alternatives that are just as effective as peat. And Natalie is going to start with responding to that question.
Thank you, Christy, and thank you, Mary. I'm joining from Ulster County, New York today on Muncie Lenape former land. And yes, some plants benefit greatly from growing in the peat-based compost. Those are acid-loving plants, which enjoy an ericaceous soil, but there are many other ingredients that we could use that have very similar qualities to peat. Some of these come from commercial production of things like coconuts. So coir comes from coconut husks. There's waste wool. There is bracken compost, but all of these are not free. So the most plentifully available an inexpensive source of a substitute for peat moss in the garden would be from leaf mold. This is just made by shredding leaves that have fallen in the autumn if you live in a deciduous forested area, and allowing them to naturally compost in a moist environment for 1 year. And this has the benefit of being moisture retentive and but free draining. It is full of microbial growth that is beneficial to our plants and a small amount of fertility. It's a wonderful soil conditioner. So that is something that you may have available already in the area where you live. It may be provided by your municipality for free, or you could convince your municipality to provide it to you and your neighbors. Thank you.
Thanks for that info, Natalie. and for a call to action to reach out to your community and have them take an action that can be ecologically beneficial. The next question comes from Marina. The question is, since this was a continuous destruction made by a system that ignores all process of becoming a crystal peat, what else can we do to protect the bugs? How can artists articulate political and community actions to protect crystal peat and other important ecosystems? So Morgan and Alejandra are going to respond to that question.
Hello, my name is Alejandra. I am from Peru. I'm also an artist and sculptor, and I was part of this program. And I believe that as artists, first of all, we need to recognize that art is also political, and that means to build bridges with other disciplines and take an effort to speak other languages than the one we usually do, or even better, to invite them, invite other specialists like scientists with whom we worked in field, or in general other areas, to use some resources that we do have as artists. And I believe that Morgan can talk a bit more of how was our experience in field using these resources.
Hello, I'm Morgan, and I am in Colorado. We approached our story map project through the lens of wonderment and curiosity, and through an interdisciplinary and collaborative lens, and also through a somatic approach. So going to Crystal Peat and really trying to feel the energy of the place and learn from our fellow scientists. So I thought we could do a little embodiment practice by perhaps wherever you are, just feel your feet on the ground and maybe even brush your feet along the ground. And sphagnum have very thin roots, so they're not, it's not firmly attached to the ground, which is something I found very wonderful. And close your eyes. And if the definition of ecology is the study of relationships and interactions between organisms and their environment, this definition in and of itself separates organism and environment. So perhaps our role as an artist or an individual is to choose relationship over separation to our environment, to our ecosystems. So can you feel connected to wherever you are right now through your feet? And can you draw the corners of your mouth up towards your eyes? And notice how this encourages a little smile in your diaphragm. So if you place your hand on your upper belly just beneath your ribs and have that beautiful muscle, the diaphragm, you can make a frowny face for a second. So pucker your lips and make a frown for a second, and then smile. And notice how when you smile, the diaphragm smiles too. So this is an example of one small interrelation in our human body. And I think we think that the more we can interrelate to our environment, the more healing is possible.
Thank you. So I want to invite everyone to check out the rest of the students' presentation. They answered several more questions that were asked by folks in Meander, but in the interest of time, we aren't able to play all of that today. And there's a lovely song at the end of their presentation as well. Thanks, Cheshti. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks to SIOS and to the students who contributed. So it's time for a break. We actually have time for a break, and we're gonna enjoy that break now. So I'm gonna play a little video for you. There will be a 10 minutes break. We will start again at the hour. Is that how you say it? Yeah. So let's take out this. So yeah, it's been very exciting. All right. We are waiting for our next guest. So I'm gonna continue to play that soundtrack by Caroline Tampere, and with the image by Randi Nygård. They're gonna talk a bit later, and this recordings and image from Svalbard, which is an Arctic island in at the north of Norway. Let's see if I can reconnect. All right. So we have a missing guest, sadly. I hope that he will return a bit later. So Caroline Tampere and Randi Nygaard will go on. Okay, thanks for being flexible.
Yeah, no problem.
No problem. Hello.
Excuse me, Randi, you don't. Oh yeah.
Am I muted?
Yeah, no, it's me that was muted. Sorry.
Okay. So, how does it look? Should I full screen it, do you think, Caroline?
I think it looks nice like this, actually.
Okay, then I also see you and myself, so it's easier to know where we're.
Yeah, that's great.
At. Or can I? I have to. Sorry. Okay, so.
So Randi, where are you talking from at the moment?
Yeah, I'm actually in the Norwegian mountains. It's not exactly Hardangervidda, the high mountain plateau, but almost. I'm on the eastern side, in my partner's family's cabin. It's called Blefjell for the locally that know the local environment. Actually, some of the bugs that I showed some images of are here in this area. But today, or now, I mean, we'll talk about another Ensayos project, which I did together with Caroline here, my partner. And you, Caroline, you're now in Kabelvåg.
Yeah, actually, I'm in Hopen, which is like a small village close to Kabelvåg, and Kabelvåg is on the Lofoten Islands, which is north of the Arctic Circle. So it's an archipelago of islands. And very close by on the mainland, actually, that's where Sørfenseth Skole, the Nordland, is located, that Geir Torensøssa presented earlier today.
Yeah, and actually or maybe we shouldn't go all the way back, but I guess some of you have heard presentations by Ensayos earlier today, but this project has kind of been situated in Norway, and it actually comes out of the book called De norske lover. So Caroline is in the north, and here you see an image of the book De norske lover. And actually the first thing we did with this law, the wild living marine resources belong to society as a whole, was an exhibition in the north at Courant, the artist-run space in Tromsø, not so far away from Caroline. But why would we, as a group of artists, me, Caroline Tampere, as you see, and also we must mention that Søssa Jørgensen and Geir Tore Holm has also been part of this project and the exhibition in Tromsø, and they're also part of Ensayos in Norway. So this law sentence, why would we be interested in that, and how does it relate to society as a whole and to what we could call the commons? So we'll try to talk a little bit about that. And as we were at Courant, we also had a lot of talks and conversations with different people. So Caroline will read some excerpts from those interviews. But first, we were actually in a residency in New York, and we were talking about Ensayos number 4, which at the time was beginning, and it dealt with management of the coast, oceans, coastlines, how languages and identity are formed in these coastal areas, and how the oceans can be protected, and what does it mean? I mean, since it's a moving entity and it's quite global, how would you limit it, and so on. And so when we came back to Norway, I thought it was interesting to actually look at the Norwegian laws in De norske lover. And then it's a paragraph, as you'd say in Norwegian, or a section. It's in the introduction to the Marine Resources Act, meaning that it's the law governing the management of the marine resources in Norway. I found it very poetic and very strange. So I wondered, how could this wording with the wild living being a resource and then belonging to society as a whole. How is this a law? And how did it end up so kind of poetic and strange? So we now know quite a bit about that, but I will, instead of explaining the law or the section to you, we wanted to kind of introduce a little bit to how we as artists dealt with it. And in Tromsø, we asked a series of questions to a group of people to try to kind of come closer to what kind of conception of nature and conception of human society's relationship to nature and what we then call resources do we have. So the people we talked to would be fishermen, they were academics, artists, activists. Who else was it, Caroline, that we talked to? Lawyers, local people from the Havforskningsinstitutet, the Marine Research Institute, and from the university. So it is a broad range of people with different kind of knowledge and relationship to the coast in the north. And what we wondered about, and I could say also that I think as an artist, sometimes we have one advantage, and that's that our methods are not really clear. And we can also be kind of naive in the way that we would frame things. So we started on ground zero and we asked them, why does the law say wild living? And what conception do you think that conception of nature lies behind that sentence? And what meaning and value do the sea and nature have beyond being a resource or beyond providing services for us, the humans? And what do you think a resource is? What is meant by ligg til in Norwegian in the wording, or belong to? And what is the relationship between the society, the resources, and what we then here call the wild living? And who is part of community, or what the law calls then in English, society as a whole? And then we had a range of answers. And after that project in Tromsø, which were, as I said, an exhibition, a small one, and then these conversations, we decided to make the book that you now see on the screen. So I will go through it. And then we used some of the people's inputs. And we stated then that we kind of would try to understand a little bit more how are the structures of society dealing with what we know about nature. And then this goes beyond management. So the law is related to management, but we try to go beyond toward what are all other values and so on. So now you actually see some pages of the book. And then we had sections. So in one chapter, we'd look at the wild living. And then there are excerpts from the talks from Tromsø and some images. And here's a poem in that chapter by the artist Cecilia Vicuña. Should we read it, Caroline, or should we skip it? What do you think?
Yeah, we can read it. What page was that again? That was, let me have a look here, because I have the book here.
I think it's 40
in my hand. So let me find this one. And it is called A Response to the Law. So this is what Cecilia Vicuña wrote. A response to the law. Wild living marine resources belong to Norwegian society as a whole. Norwegian Marine Resources Act from 2008. By this act, the whole society needs to protect the ocean. But the ocean belongs to itself. E.O. Wilson says, to save biodiversity, we need to set aside about half the Earth's surface as a natural reserve. But each one of us, each living thing, is a reserve for the future. If we called wild living things reserves or marine resources, we are objectifying them, making them into commodities. If we say life or living ocean, we may feel its will to live.
Yeah. And Cecilia Vicuña is a Chilean poet and artist. living in New York, right?
Yeah.
And she took part, among others, in the last Documenta. Yeah, and then we have a scientist who wrote an article about sound in the ocean and how sound is very important for the orientation or understanding of their environment for different kind of animals or fish in the ocean, which is, and how it also, of course, touches upon quite a lot how human activity disturbs the soundscapes in the underwater landscapes. We'll go quite quickly through here. So we have paintings, other poems, we have manifests, essays, academic articles about fishing industry and how it's cybernetic. For instance, essay by Caroline Tampere. And then, of course, we have juridical texts explaining this law. And here are a photo by Gartu Holm. And we have a People's Archive of Sinking and Melting, where I think it's still on, right, Caroline, where you can actually send in things from coastlines.
Yes,
where they are, which are either melting or sinking. So relating to the climate change and how it changes these areas.
Yeah, this is a project by the American artist Amy Balkin.
Yeah. And then I wanted to also say that now that we come closer to the last chapter of the book, which is then fellesskap in Norwegian, meaning a community, but it's translated into society as a whole, that we were also wondering, in order to manage nature, do we have to see ourselves as outside it? And how would a law like this, stating that the wild living are a resource, seem to a trout or a gull? And what would they think about who's part of community? And how do we actually, as humans, picture ourselves as part of the environments that we are actually exploiting and misusing at the same time? So we think there's some kind of lack in the way that we conceive ourselves as part of the ecosystems, right? And if you turn it around, could we, the humans, be resources for the wild living? And then can seeing a law as poetic help us create new ideas and maybe new images of the world? And can we take lives, for instance, eat fish, and still see the community we share with other living entities as non-hierarchical? Yeah. And then, so I think that there's something contradictory when it comes to what's a resource, right? And it's also seemed to us quite hard sometimes for people to talk about what values we find beyond resources. But I think that we should maybe you read some of the excerpts, Caroline, and then we sum it a little bit up after we have heard the voices of some of our collaborators. And in this section where we have excerpts from the talks that we had at Courant, the names are not mentioned, but I guess you're free if you want to, Caroline, to state who said what. But it's not important, I think.
Sure. Yeah, so if it has been any confusion about the title of this project and the book and the actual law that we have been, let's say, working with, the actual law has the word Norway in it. So it says to Norwegian society as a whole, and that was also what Cecilia Vicuña was including in her response. So also some of the responses from the scholars and scientists that we talked with is also relating directly to this law with actually the word Norway in it. But we wanted to keep it more open and not defined by the nation state as such. So one response, for example, is that during the fomenting of Norway as a nation, there was a search for a common identity. The aim was by no means to create a multicultural society, and many minorities were thus subjected to Norwegianization. The coastal population still consists of many ethnical groups, and on the fishing boats today, there are still people of many nationalities working together. Society as a whole in Norway smooths over all of these differences. There are actually many different communities in Norway. And that is also something that Geir Tore was talking about earlier today. This excerpt is from Camilla Bratland, and she is a scholar at the University in Tromsø at the Sami Studies. And let's see. Responsibility is a mirror effect of having the power to act on something or to fail to do so. So, if one has a chance to influence something or to refrain from doing so, one still has a responsibility, and that is what society has. This is an excerpt from Anders Zombie, who is a joiker and a jurist, specialist in laws, also in Tromsø of the university there. Yes. And then, last one. The community is a part of the ecosystem. We interact with our surroundings. I like the word surroundings better. There is something implicit in the term system. It is like some kind of cogs that fit together. But it is not always so obvious how these systems are connected. So that is a scholar and a specialist in the fishing industry, the cybernetic fishing industry. So yeah, I also wanted to show, I mean, this book that you saw a picture of course, in there, and now this is quite small, but with the designer, we came up with the idea of covering something. I mean, laws, how the laws are covering, or how they're supporting, or how they're protecting or not our life and resources. So it's like a law, or it's like some sort of a shield and a paper that is like a legislative paper, which is covering the actual content of this book as more of a design conceptual element there. And then this book is also being joined by the logbook, which is from 1 week boat trip with Sørfinset skole, the Nordland, along the coastline close to Sørfinset in Gildeskål, in the different islands there, investigating history and presence in these areas. Yeah, so that was a little bit from us.
Yeah, I just wanted to, before we end in 2 minutes, say that one of our inspirations for this project, which has also been a series of events at Kunstnernes Hus in Oslo, is the philosopher Derrida's words that if there's going to be a language or a way of thinking about plants and animals, this kind of language has to derive from poetry, because in the way that they are in the world, which is not rational the way that our languages are built and the way that our laws are stated. So maybe it's a bit unclear what he meant here, but I think it's quite inspiring as an artist to try to think that if the community would have been, or society as a whole, would have been defined or seen as including other living entities, maybe our laws would be really, really different. And maybe also the practice that, within the legal system could differ quite a bit from what we see today. So I think, because I also think that when you try to find out what's the inherent value of, it could be like, a plant or a fish or even a human being, it's sometimes hard. And human beings are also under this kind of resources thinking. So Yeah. So maybe, yeah, I think we need new images of the world, but we also need new laws. I think it's quite an interesting thing. Yeah. It might happen in the future. Should we end it there, Caroline, or do you want to say something to sum it up?
I think so. I think it's nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. We're gonna switch the background image before our last guest is entering. Hello there, Enrique. Am I saying your name correctly? Enrique.
Hello. Hi.
Hey.
Is
Nice to meet you. Yeah, the sound is perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
I have a lot of noise on the background here in the neighborhood, so you might get in the microphones.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you.
So we're excited to know about your project. Is there another one joining? Yeah. So it's also.
Yes, we're waiting for Alena.
There she is. Yes. Okay. Nice to meet you.
Hi. Hello.
Thanks for joining.
Let me see how can I share the screen here.
Você tá com o seu som ligado, Henrique?
So are you trying to share the screen and it's not appearing? Or I think that maybe it's because of our bad internet connection that it's going to take some time before it's loading up to my studio here.
Okay.
I don't know, or it could be something else, but some internet troubles maybe. We're at the mercy of this technology, so you have to just make the best of it.
So Enrique is telling me now that she has a trouble with this computer, but he's trying to reconnecting now. So.
Yeah. Okay, we know. We know the problem.
It's a very familiar problem.
Yeah. So yeah, and we have time, so we will just wait and.
Okay, thank you.
So maybe you want to tell us where you are situated in the meantime. Do you want to say something about where you?
So I'm in Brazil. I'm from Brazil, so in São Paulo right now. I was born in Rio de Janeiro actually, but now I'm in São Paulo. I think Marina is asking for enter with us in this room.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yes.
Hi. Hi again. I think we should say that the Radio Yande is not coming, unfortunately. I think he had a problem with the connection. He was here in the program, but I can't contact. I think Enrique is back.
Yes, perfect. We'll try again. If you can share your screen now. Nice background song.
Tá rolando uma música aí?
Always like the neighborhood's very animated. Can you? Okay.
So yeah,
I think now it's working. I had a problem with the StreamYard. It was some issue with Chrome. Now I go with Firefox. It's okay now.
Oh really? Okay. Yeah. Good that you solved it. Yeah. So now you're ready.
So can you start now? So
yes.
Okay. Well, so first, thanks for the invitation. It's so nice to be here with you. It was very nice to hear also the previous presentation. So first, sorry, my English is terrible. Perhaps I ask a little help from my friend with the translation. So Marina, it's over there. Well, my name is Alana. I'm a researcher. I'm an anthropologist. I'm a feminist too. So I'm just trying to thinking and about what is a feminist, science feminist look like. So it's a kind of experimentation inside this turn of feminist, science feminist. So we are from Brazil. We are actually at the center of the end of the world now. And we are going to talk about the Contagion Zone, which was an emerging laboratory of research and shared experimentation that act on the pandemic event. So it was not about think about the pandemic event, but further thinking with the pandemic event in Brazil and speculate on the possibilities of knowledge practice within extreme events in the technological digital environment. So from this impossibility to living home to meet others. So monoculture was this intersection landscape a contact zone that allows us to investigate the complicity between new technology arrangements and old ways of exercising the domestication of land, of animals, of plants, and racialized humans. So we start to think about research possibilities that emerge from the plantation scene image and its machinery of ecological simplification. Then the contagion zone emerging in this intersection between the ecological collapse event of the pandemic and the expansion of the digital technological ecology that begins more intensely to mediate our forms of presence, meeting, relation, thought. So this is the contact zone that we start to think and move from between the forms of the plantation scene, but also the techno scene. So a very important dimension of the contagion zone was the permanent production of frictions, the invention of rhythms, the investigation of sounds, noise, interruptions that could disturb this smooth landscape of digital environments and platforms. So we had to reinvent a way to be together and breathe together, relearn to letting the unexpected. So we are very concerned with the implicability between thought and the body confined on domesticity, between death and life, movement and imagination, fear and the urge to invent together new forms of complicity. Our collective research was a choreography possibility to inhabit these questions, but also thinking about what kind of knowledge matters in this world's war we live in Brazil today. It's not just a problem of how to fabricate evidence of the catastrophe, but also of thinking about forms of knowledge that includes others cosmotechnic than the modern one. Forms of knowledge that can create and sustain communities of survivors. And this allows us to think in a slow way, avoiding the traps of modern scientific production, originality, productivity, purity, security. And all this made up a scientific practice that could not refuse the challenge of investigating what Anna Tsing calls life in the ruins. The contagion zone was a way of investigating from these ruins. Later, I start thinking that these two letters of zone of contagions, C and Z, might also suggest many other images that were important to us. Contact zone, common zone, counter-colonial zone, complicity zone, coexistence zone, think about a multi-species science, but also a creation zone, a practice of knowledge that allows us to speculate, create a body together, improvise beyond the expectation of algorithms and fictions of control and domestication. So this practice of laboratory to create a collective landscape of research, I think Henrique could talk about a little bit more about this infrastructure of research, of collective research that we've trying together. Henrique?
Hi Marina, Helena. I'd like to say thank you for the invitation to share with you some of our perspectives on this experience of the contagious zone. Thank you, Alana, for this presentation. I'm going to do like a backward movement. First, I'm going to situate a little bit more at this experience of the lab within the other things that we've been doing inside the Pimenta Lab laboratory, which is a research and experimental group that works within technology, knowledge, and politics within the Federal University of São Paulo. And we're situated in the western part of the metropolitan zone of São Paulo City, in the very extreme part of the metropolitan area of São Paulo City. And so the contagion zone was one experiment within 3 different research lines that we've been working on. One more concentrated on technopolitics and cybernetic social life. Another one on social technical transition and social conflict within the Anthropocene. And the third line on situated and experimental investigations, which is more transversal to the 2 other research lines. So at the central problem that we were facing within this project, it's to deal with a triple crisis, which we can point within the crisis of the democratic and the democratic institutions, science and technology, and social and environmental problems. And we're looking to the configuration for contemporary capitalism, concentrate more on the conflicts between the relation of the production of knowledge and power relations, and how this conflict is producing a disrupt of the common and the sharing world, and how this is producing a kind of war, world wars, huh? And in the contagion zones, we had like 3 different lines working together. One more related to what we call the technocene and the technocratic problems. See how the social technical arrangements, how they have a more centrality in the organization of social life. And the second one was how the information and cybernetic technologies have taken a more central power in the organization of life, and how during the pandemic period, these informational and cybernetic technologies, how they have taken over really fast. And these 2 things together, they help us to see the connection between the extractivism in practice and also the financial economic dynamic, how they are intrinsic. One example of this that we have discussed in this period, it's how in the Brazilian economy, the 2 major economic sectors that have grown a lot was the agro business, the monoculture, for the export model, and also the economics for the big tech companies. And this is not only in Brazil, but pretty much all over the world. So in order to investigate the things, we've been trying to create the labs, which is a place where a kind of experience can take place, and where we can also experiment a mode of investigation through the creation of prototypes, which is a form to investigate with the problem, but also creating situations where we can intervene and where we can act within the problem that we are investigating. And in doing so, we try to move from a power knowledge relation to a combination of knowing and inhabit relation, right? So the contagious laboratory, we can also call it as a technopolitics of the common laboratory, where we try to articulate these different relations, right? It's positive for the situated investigation. We also like to put our bodies at the center of this process, working as a sensorial collective body. We think it as a process that want to create a transitory community, which is pretty much an affective collective community, which produce a certain idea for a common science, which is also related to an idea for a more radical idea of open science. But in order to do so, we have also to create an infrastructure and technologies of belonging. So these all the things that have to be integrated to create the possibility of this laboratory. And in doing so, we want to also to destabilize the regime of sensibility, right? Which is something important to create a tension in the mode of production of evidence and facts. So thinking that most of the problems that we're facing, it's not a problem of lack of information or information of bad quality, but it's a problem where we need to produce fact and evidence that can produce a different collective experience, produce a new collective world. So I think that's it, Elena. If you want to complete something.
Yes. Sounds like a good place to end these presentations, that we should try to find a new collective road out of these problems together. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining and enriching the program. So I'm gonna leave you. So we're at the end of the journey here, and we will just end by thanking all the participants here from the studio at Notam. Thanks from Instituto Procomum and SIOS and So it's possible that you hear me, but my image is frozen, so I'm not really sure if we are together. Skal vi gå på den andre? We can go over to the next, to the other computer. Okay. All right. Yes. So sorry about that. Thank you, Marina Gusso, Marina Paez, Kristi Gast, Katrin Fransman, Randi Nygård, Caroline Tampere, Kristin Astrup Aas, Raisa Capasso, Gabrielle Keeling, Sessa Jørgensen here, Geir, thank you so much, Olive Beringa, the Nomad Interdisciplinary MFA students at the University of Hartford, conducted by Kristi Gast from NSIOS. The students are Teal Gardner, Morgan Kulas, Justice Moore, Rebecca Schultz, Natalie Stopka, Becca Sablocki, Alejandra Oritz de Savallos, Contigos, from the Contagious Zone, Enrique Parra, Alana Moares de Sousa. So yes, again, thank you very much. Thank you, Notam, for letting us stay, and to the Arts Council Norway for supporting us economically. Is there something more you want to say,
I want to
Geir?
say thank you to Kjersti Wetterstad, that was the Meander host tonight, and kept this great event going, even through some technical problems. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to give everybody a hug. One for you, Sessa, the ones that are here. So a virtual hug to everybody. And hope to see you soon somewhere. If you want to come online, that would be actually very nice. Okay, we go back to our little. Okay. Back to Norway. And okay, we have Kristin here. Should have had some music, maybe, to join us. So those were the ones that I could find that are still having their webcams on. So thanks for watching. It would be, we want to, as we said in the chat here, we want to post the videos that were not working on our web page and on Facebook, so that you can look into it when you have time. Yeah. All right. The end.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kristin. Ciao.
Sorry, I had something on the stove for an hour and
Thank you, Kristin.
Thank you. Nice to see you all. I wish I was there in person with you.
You too.